Hey guys, welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. I'm Nicole Knight, and we're going to be coming back to playing this game here. Basically a lot of intense shit. We think we're good to go with, like, being able to be friends and keep normal and stuff, while dealing with the facts of death and missing people and stuff coming around, but, Rena catches on with her shit, calls us out on it, and freaks out at us. Liar. So it's just been another one of those things now where we're like, alright, we can't trust my friends anymore. Cool. And we get a phone call from our police chief friend, and we're at home and everything, chilling out, and all of a sudden our dad's like, oh hey, Rena was here, did I just miss her? And we're like, Rena wasn't here, what are you talking about? So really freaky stuff's now kind of going around about. And this is the part I've been excited for, like, this entire time. And it only took, like, chapter 7 or so-ish to get, like, that way. But, anywho, back to this. Weariness and a headache. Not a very nice way to start the day. What's wrong, Eiichi? You don't look very well. Where did you go to sleep? When did you go to sleep? It seemed that my mom had noticed my sullen state. Yesterday I'd kept on waking up in the middle of the night. Without a doubt, I felt a presence. I felt the presence of someone standing in front of my door. I told myself repeatedly that was my imagination and forced myself to try to sleep. Except, not being able to stand it, I gathered up my courage and opened the door. Of course there wasn't anyone there. I think I did this 3 times throughout the night. Or maybe I didn't remember doing it any more than that. Even though I was able to get the breakfast table without incident, I still didn't feel at ease. It might be a cold. I don't really have an appetite. My, you do seem a little warm. Well, can you make it to school? Technically I did go to a school, but it was mostly self-study. It wouldn't matter much if I missed a day, would it? It could have been that I hadn't been feeling well for the last few days because I really did have a cold. But did take some medicine and got a good day of rest, I might be able to greet everyone with a smile tomorrow. Startled, I looked back and forth between the entrance and the clock. It was 10 minutes later than I usually met up with Rena. It was Rena. Rena-chan came to get you. What are you going to do? Are you going to take the day off? Rena was a good girl. She might be somewhat quirky, but she certainly was cute. The lunches she made were delicious and she always looked out for me. Why should I be so scared of something like that? It wasn't Rena's fault. It was probably mine. I had to have been my cold. It just had to be. I'll rest. Sorry. Then I'll go send her off for you. Mom headed off to the door. I would have to pass by the entrance to get back to my room. I didn't have the nerve to meet with Rena, so I wrapped myself in a blanket on the sofa and closed my eyes. I was so sleep deprived, I quickly fell to a deep slumber. God, I've had days like that where you just could not do anything. And I've only been recently able to, like, let myself call into work and be like, I can't go to work because I don't feel good. But I'll admit that's easier said than done whenever you're just trying to live. Anyway, enough personal crap. I'd only intended to lie down for a bit, but it was almost noon when I woke up. I called out to my parents, but they didn't seem to be around. On the table I found lunch prepared and a note. Mom and Dad had apparently driven off to somewhere far away. It likely had to do with Dad's work. This happened every so often, so it wasn't that unusual. They would just probably be back sometime after dinner. On the note it said, the insurance card is in the cabinet. Take it and go to the hospital. There was also a well-drawn map to the hospital. That's right. I hadn't been there before, so I didn't know exactly where it was. I had a light lunch, although it was really just leftovers from the morning, and just in case, went to the hospital. Normally I'd never be here in the middle of a weekday. Just walking around like this had me feeling guilty. It was an odd feeling. Following my mom's map, I took a road I usually never used. After walking a bit, the hospital's sign came into view. Erie Clinic was written rather stylishly on the sign. The clinic wasn't very big, but based on the scale of the rest of Himinizawa, it was far too grand. There was parking lot and even a reserved spot for buses. They must be making a mint. I spaced out in the air-conditioned waiting room until it was my turn to be seen. Maibara-san, please make your way to the examination room. This music is so somber, it's interesting. My mood just sort of just drops from here intense and then all of a sudden After properly answering all of the chatty doctor's questions, he responded with the old, "It's probably a cold." They gave me a shot and 3 days worth of medicine. That was a little overboard, but if it would help clear away the gloomy feeling I've been feeling lately, then it would be worth it. You need different meds for that, bud. Kidding, it's not depression. I sat at the bill and took a quick trip to the washroom. As I was leaving, I overheard a conversation between some elderly people who seemed to be regulars at the clinic. Of course, I had no intention of eavesdropping. If it wasn't for that word. It must have been an onikakushi. I wonder. She was still pretty young. Might have been just eloped. With whom? That man from Tokyo who visits every season. The one with the big camera. Didn't you know they were getting along pretty well? Are they talking about Tomitaka-san? I could feel my ears perking up. I don't know about that. But you have to make preparations before you elope. Leave a note or quit your job or something. It's an elopement because they didn't leave a note or message. Thought of that, I'll never see the young nurse's face again makes me rather sad. Takano-san is an upstanding young woman. She'll be fine wherever she goes. Her name was Takano-san. That woman with Tomitaka-san. And she worked at this clinic? Oyashiro-sama's shadow was following me everywhere I went. I started listening more closely, but they began talking about fishing and it didn't seem like they were going to revisit the topic, so I gave up and left. Thus, even though I was separated from the daily monotony of school, I was unable to escape from Oyashiro-sama's shadow. But of course, Oyashiro-sama was the guardian deity of this place, of Himinizawa. As long as I was in Himinizawa, I wouldn't be able to escape. Maybe it was because I was walking outside, but my appetite suddenly returned. Might as well go buy a snack from the change from the examination fee on my way home. Contemplating that, I turned to a familiar street. At that moment, I heard a car horn abruptly honk behind me. Was I really walking so far in the middle of the road where I'd be in the car's way? I moved farther off to the side, but the horn was still honking at me. I turned around, peeved. Hey! Maibara-san. Good day to you. It was Uishi-san. He stepped out of his car, acing on full blast, and waved at me. What's up today? School on break? Just not feeling well, so I took the day off. I was just about to buy lunch and head back home. That's great. I'm just about to get lunch myself. Would you mind going together? If you're not feeling up to it, then don't mind me. I was just gonna go lie down after going home anyway. And if I didn't have a cold. I doubt you want to eat at one of these local places. Let's go into town. It's a bit of a drive, is that alright? I know a pretty good place. I finally begun to understand Uishi-san's roundabout way of saying things. He probably wanted to talk to me about stuff that'd be difficult to discuss while in Himinizawa. Fair enough. I went with Uishi-san riding in his frigid car. It was almost as if the bright sunlight outside was a lie. I'm sorry about calling you so late last night. Did your parents get angry at you? No. I recalled Rena, who had been listening to the phone conversation all the time, separated from me just by the door. Even now in the brightness of the sunlight, the thought still creeped me out. With the big bump that jolted the car, the road connecting to the city changed from dirt to pavement. My head swiveled back with a sudden realization. That's right. This was where Tomitaka-san died. They've hit a snag on an investigation regarding Tomitaka-san. Uishi-san spoke while peering at me from the corner of his eye. They believed it was caused by hallucinogens, given how he was clawing out his own throat. But a drug like that could cause that to happen just suddenly is extremely hard to come by. Bear in mind, of course, the autopsy was done with that premise in mind, and we still didn't find any leads. You know that thing you see in comics all the time? Where there's a drug that if you put it in them, it doesn't leave any traces? It exists. I always hate words I have a hard time reading. Succinical something or other. Well, it's pretty common. But you see, there doesn't seem to be any of that drug that would cause Tomitake-san to react like that. Then you're saying the police concluded Tomitake just died from the curse? I couldn't help but feel the police were worthless. I just wanted the idea of a curse to be disassociated from Tomitake-san's mysterious death. Unfortunately, that's how it looks right now. But putting aside of the cause of death, without a doubt he was surrounded by a group of people and had been taken a beating before he died. That was no curse, but an incident that was unquestionably involved other humans. That made me a bit relieved. We passed in front of the rather desolate, but still busier than Himinizawa train station. Nicole pulled into a restaurant parking lot and I followed Uishi-san into the shop. It was pretty crowded, but there were only adults at this hour. Of course, there shouldn't be any children here in the middle of a weekday. 2, please, non-smoking. This way, please. When are you ready to order, please call me over. We were led by a peculiarly dressed waitress to our table. I sat with Uishi-san in the booth. So what do you think? Aren't the waitresses' outfits here cute? Huh? Well, I guess. The shop is always quite busy. It's more about the waitresses and the food, you see. Uh-huh. Uishi-san, you're leering. Am I really? Oh, God. Regardless of how the waitresses looked, the food was decent enough. Finishing our meals while talking about some inane topic, Uishi-san's after-meal cup of coffee arrived at the table. Yesterday we talked about Himinizawa's past, didn't we? Yeah, it was the village of man-eating demons or something like that. I didn't know much about it myself, so I asked my grandmother about it this morning. Uishi-san took out a notepad and was stuffed into his breast pocket. Turns out that Himinizawa used to be called Onegafuchi, or Ogre's Abyss. Onegafuchi. That's quite the name. The name is still around. The marsh where the Shinto's priest's wife drowned herself is still called the Ogre's Abyss. It's said that the depths of that marsh connect to the realm of demons. Of course, nobody told me anything about such ominous marsh. And you see, it appears that they were both feared and revered. A respect born of fear. I guess you could say it was kind of a deification. I'm not good with words right now, guys. You have to bear with me. A village made of inhuman creatures. Seems like the demons were sennin, or mountain-dwelling mystics of sorts, taking villagers with incurable illnesses into the Ogre's Abyss and healing them, for example. Even if we're calling them demons, Tengu, long-nosed goblins, or sennin would be a more apt description. They didn't seem like terrible people, even though they were called demons. But they were still man-eating demons. According to the story my grandma told me, as payment for treating the son's illnesses, let us eat the mother who brought him here, was apparently how things went. The price of curing her son was herself? That's unsettling. Of course the mother took her son and ran. Then, you see, all the people who lived in Onegafuchi, the demons chased them down, rounded them up, and captured them. The entire village, apparently. That's quite a frightening thing to imagine. I wonder how much inspiration this actually takes from like actual Japanese folklore and stuff like that. I'm always wanting to actually look into it, but I kind of feel like it's like a lot of information to learn about. At least all at once, anyway. In the end, it seems both the mother and son were caught and eaten. The end. Thanks for the story, dude. There's a problem with the story. Both witnesses in the story were eaten, so nobody would be able to tell the tale. Huh? Well, there are plenty of old fables like this. In contrast to the ghastly tale, Uishi-san laughed heartily while sipping his coffee. But, well, there are quite a few other tales, where the demons from Onegafuchi band together to capture their prey. I recall that Mion said all the villagers united and fought against the dam construction. I saw similarities with how that part about the unification overlapped. Normally, they hunted down a single person, and they chose who it was going to be beforehand. Huh? That caught my attention. Ushi-san also appeared to be pondering on what it meant. My grandmother told me that you must never interfere with the demon's hunt. You should just hole up in your house and hide under the covers, she said. So what does this all mean? It means you mustn't ever help or protect the prey. As long as you don't disturb the demon's hunt, no harm will ever fall upon the villagers. It seemed that there's that kind of a rule. Basically, don't help the victims. Pretend you didn't see the atrocities, in other words. What happens if you break the rule? Well, they're man-eating demons after all. Many parts of the tale caught my attention. Parts of the story he told me overlapped with his theory about the perpetrators were all the village families. Even if it wasn't the whole village, it was conceivable that the villagers were hiding under the covers and leaving them to die. Then there's a group that was on their hunt, wasn't it? I didn't dare speak it. Then, Uishi-san, I guess it looks like either the village families or a group of villagers perpetrating the crimes. What do you think, Mabara-san? Excuse me. Another cup of coffee, please. That's what I wanted to know. It seemed that we're both waiting for the other to say the last part. Bro, you investigated this shit more than I have. Why are you asking a kid? Whatever. I waited for the waitress to finish pouring the coffee before speaking. Last year I had a nagging feeling when Satoshi-kun disappeared. Uishi-san muttered as he watched the milk swirl around his coffee. So those friends of Satoshi-kun, meaning your group of friends, Maribor-san, I had a bit, really just a little bit, okay, of background checking done on them. If Uishi-san had said this to me before, I would have been furious since he had told me earlier not to suspect my friends. But as I was now, I couldn't. Especially that bullshit with Rena? Hell yeah. You have a right to be a little suspicious. This might sound pretty stupid, Maribara-san. If you feel that is stupid, please say so. I'll just stop. Uishi-san was wearing the most serious expression that I'd ever seen from him. If he was telling me to prepare myself and listen. As if he was telling me to prepare myself and listen. There are quite a few things I regretted hearing from Uishi-san, but none of them were as threatening as this. A little voice inside me was screaming like an alarm. Stop, Keiichi. This was probably the last one. I took a deep breath and silenced that voice. I would not run from the truth. Please. Was all I could utter. Uishi-san stared in my eyes silently for a few moments. After he was certain I was ready, he began. The victim of the incident in the first year was the overseer. A few weeks prior, he had an altercation with Mion Sonosaki-san. Multiple altercations. Uishi-san has said that before Mion had defied the damn project vehemently. Well, it wasn't that hard to imagine how she'd be if she got all worked up. In the second year, the married couple who supported the project died in the accident, right? They had a daughter. Her name is Satoko Hojo-san. Huh? Satoko meaning Satoko. Uishi-san's look told me that my voice was too loud. I realized as well and quickly quieted down. The Shinto priest and his wife who died in the third year, you see? Their daughter is Rika Furude-san. Rika-chan was the housewife who died in the fourth year, you already know, don't you? It was a step-aunt of Satoko Hojo-san. She was in her aunt and uncle's custody, as she had lost both her parents in the accident. She lived in the victim's house. I could tell my lips were getting dry. I didn't even have the wits to keep my mouth from hanging agape. I had thought it was all nothing but a bizarre incident, one I could easily distance myself from. But clicking and clacking, it all had snuck all the way to my feet. The one who disappeared the fourth year, by the way, he was Satoko-san's older brother. What? Wait. Just a second. It took everything I finally to say that. I gulped down a glass of water once again, wiped my face with a napkin. Calm down, Keiichi, my bro. But Uishi-san was relentless. Instead of waiting for me to finish sorting out my feelings, he started speaking again. The last of the things I shouldn't have heard. All of the victims seem to be connected to your group of friends. That just has to be a coincidence. Mabara-san, keep it down. Everyone's looking. Mion, Satoko, Rika-chan. So what if they're connected? You're telling me that all my friends... It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Oh, Rena's different, isn't she? Rena isn't connecting with the victims at all. Renarugu was living in the suburb of Ibaraki Prefecture up until last year. Well, it's true that she hadn't directly met with any of the victims. He said it in a roundabout way. Is he saying that she's also connected? Actually, I looked into her. Before Ryugu-san moved away to Himinazawa, she was suspended from school. It seems she went through her school building and broke all the windows. Rena did that? She broke all the windows at her school. That same silly Rena had... I couldn't even imagine it. It seems after her 3-day suspension, she didn't return to school. She went to a neurologist, dysautonomia. Okay. She was given weeks of counseling and medication. I wonder if that was something like a nervous breakdown. If I heard about that, it means people who are really methodical or overly sensitive. Neither of us matched Rena's easygoing personality. And in the counselor's medical report, he recorded all of the conversations he had with Rena-san. It shows up, and quite a bit at that. What did? I pressed forward carelessly. There couldn't be anything more for me to regret. She mentioned the word Oyashiro-sama. It felt like someone's stone hand was caressing my back. Why? Why had Rena spoken of Oyashiro-sama before she had came to Himinazawa? It seemed that Oyashiro-sama she spoke of was like a ghost, appearing in her house every night. Standing over her pillow, looking down at her. My mind froze. I couldn't process at what I was being told. A while after that, she moved to Himinazawa. Ah, that's right. She's not an outsider. Huh? According to the residency register, the Ryugu family used to reside in Himinazawa. Rena-san moved to Ibaraki right after she finished elementary school. My mind went completely blank. It was similar to the static you'd see on a blank TV channel. My ears began ringing as I lost all sense of comprehension. Mayabara-san, are you alright? Shall we stop? Those words brought me back. I couldn't let it end here. Now I understand Rena. Then how about the last victim, Tomitaka-san? Who was he connected with? Irritated, I let out one final reprisal. All of them. Have you forgotten, Mayabara-san? Didn't you all spend the night of the festival together quite merrily? Quite a few of the officers saw you enjoying yourselves. Now there was nothing I could respond with. I fell silent as my brain turned to mush. We should get going. Mayabara-san, did you take your afternoon medicine? I had completely forgotten about the medication I had gotten in today until Uishi-san said that. I got another glass of water. We left the shop after I chugged it down. We got in the car and turned to Himinazawa via the rough road. I never really paid attention when I was on my bike, but did cars normally shake this much? It was as almost the road was desperately trying to tell me something. But that big jolt was the difference in elevation of the road when it changed to cement to dirt. I was certain that I heard Tomitaka-san scream. I sat in silence, just letting myself be shaken by the car. I'll drop you off at your house. You missed school because you were ill, correct? My apologies for the long conversation. Why did you talk to me? I blurted out the question. Really just blurted it out. I didn't expect an answer. I did check with you first, didn't I? If we should just stop. Not that. Why did you reach out to me? I understood quite well that Uishi-san was investigating the string of suspicious incidents. But why was he telling me all this? I knew nothing, and I couldn't help. Everything Uishi-san spoke of was news to me. First of all, how could I, having just moved here, know? By chance, if there was a reason for Uishi-san to reach out to me, then it would have to be that I was suspicious to Uishi-san, as I was part of Mion's circle of friends. I'm retiring this year. I plan on moving away after retiring as my grandma wants. So while I'm still in the case, I want to bring the truth behind this incident to light. So Uishi-san, you suspect them, don't you? All of them. Uishi-san didn't really give a response. I felt a little late, but I thought that was his way of showing a bit of consideration for my feelings. This is mostly my intuition from 30 years on this job. Mayabara-san, you're the one in danger. Huh? I wanted to reply with that was absurd, but in my downtrodden state, I couldn't bring myself to say it. I'll be retiring this year, so I won't be at the Watanagashi next year. So I want to settle things. In other words, he was insinuating that on the next Watanagashi I might be the next victim. I've been warned by the chief as well. Each incident in the string of cases has been solved, so don't bring it up again, or so I was told. This is the pressure that I'm facing. Pressure from what? Someone in Himinizawa. We've arrived. Is this fine? After some time, the car finally reached the path to my house. The clock read 2 p.m. I was surprised so little time had passed since we ate. It was hot outside the car. The chirping of the Higurashi hurt my ears. I won't mind if you forgot everything I told you today, but I'm still going to keep investigating. I'll end Oyashiro-sama's curse this year. So you're saying I should contact you if anything happens? That's fine. Just contact me when you feel you have it to Maribara-san. I wasn't collected enough to understand Oishi-san's roundabout way of saying it. You should have taken it easy. I'm sorry for throwing this all at you while you're taking the day off because you're sick. I didn't really give off any sort of response. I'll always be on your side. If anything, believe that. I'll be off now. In the anime, in different case scenarios, you lie! Anyway. Nothing to do with this. He's actually genuinely great in, this particular scenario. The tires crunched over the dirt and road as the car, making a U-turn, disappeared to the cloud of kicked-up dust. It felt like I was watching a boat only throw me to a lifesaver in the shark-infested waters before disappearing to the distance. That was the first time I thought Uishi-san was being unfair. Tell me that I was going to be the next victim, and then just saying to contact him if something happened. This wasn't a criminal investigation. He was fishing. And I was just the bait dangling off the line. Would the fish be the perpetrator? Or was it really just Oyashiro-sama's curse? Either way, the bait would be swallowed whole. Damn it, I don't want to die. For some time, I could do nothing but stare at the puddle of water left by the AC from the car. I wonder how much time had passed since I laid down. It was getting dark outside. My body was soaking sweat. It would probably be a good idea to change my sheets. At that moment, the phone downstairs rang. It was probably Mom. Mom was quite the worrywart. Maybe she had called many times, but I didn't notice it. Hello? This is the Maribara residence? Oh, he's alive! Hello, this is Mion. How are you doing? Is this one of Keiichi's friends? Keiichi's resting right now, but shall I put him on? Huh? Is this his dad? Sorry. Wahahaha, idiot. You fell for it. Huh? Kei-chan! After our exchange, we both had a good laugh together. Except I was suspicious of her even as we were laughing. Was everybody really involved in the incidents? The fact that I couldn't say no saddened me. I'm relieved that you seem well. Rena was really worried, you know. Satsuko-chan was happy and said that you got what you deserved. Rika-chan said, how unfortunate he's sick. Looks like everybody's making a big deal out of it. Well, you know, so Kei-chan, is now a bad time to come pay you a visit? A visit? No, it's okay. It's not like I'm dying. My grandma made a ton of mochi, you see. I was told to share them, so I'll bring you some. Hey now, you'll catch my cold. Not to worry, both Ren and I are too stupid to catch cold. See ya. Be there in a bit. Too stupid to catch a cold. I wish that's how things worked. She hung up cheerfully. Rena's coming too? That's what it sounded like. I was so concerned about meeting Rena, but I guess if she was with Mion... I heard the doorbell 10 minutes later. How are you feeling? Did you take your medicine and rest? I did just that. Thank goodness you look well. I was worried. Sorry, I'll be fine by tomorrow. Mion showed a complete lack of concern for someone who's recovering, and Rena looked like she was worried about me from the bottom of her heart. It didn't look like there was anything behind those expressions. I thought we might hang out for a bit, but it looks like you're not quite in condition for it. Huh? You don't say. You seem like my face appeared a bit sullen. Then here, Keiichi-kun. These are Mochi-mi-chan's grandma made. Rena held out the package and wrapped in newspaper. There might be about 5 in here. It was quite hefty. Ah, thanks. Send my regards to your grandma, Mion. Yep. Ah, there's one I made in there as well. I wonder if Keiichi can guess which one. This is Kei-chan's homework since he missed the club meeting today. There are letters on each mochi, so I'll ask you tomorrow. Were you checking to see if I was feeling better, or were you just coming here for club activities? Yep, looking fine. Guess you were able to make it tomorrow. Man, what are you going to do if my fever comes back because of your shenanigans? Mi-chan, we shouldn't be making such a racket. Let's go. The other people here will get angry. Both of them thought my parents were home. It was because the entranceway was a mess. You're right, let's get going. Ah, by the way, Kei-chan. Yeah? Oh god, that face. I don't like it. What did you eat for lunch? The sudden question startled me, and I went wide-eyed when I saw Mion. I had never seen her like that. It was a highly unsettling visage. But why is she asking me about what I ate for lunch? What she said was so inane, it almost was meaningless. The way she said it, it was almost like she didn't even care that all about was what I ate. I ate out. She must have suspected that I was with Oishi-san. Anyway, I felt that if I hesitated or tried to change the subject, they would read too deep into it, so I tried answering as quickly as possible. Except, contrary to efforts I made, there was a pause before they replied. So you ate out for lunch, Keiichi-kun. The glimmer for Rena's eyes had changed at some point as well. It was now sharp, as if to make me feel the feigned ignorance behind her words even more. As if she already knew how it looked to me. Well, was it good? Why are you asking me this? Mion was speaking in an unusually low tone, almost as if she knew I had eaten at the restaurant in town. No, I'm overthinking this. I mean, both of them should have been at school at lunchtime. There was no way they both could have known where I was. Seems you were with a rather austere-looking older guy. Who was he? Whop. The package with the mochi I was holding slipped out of my hands. I could tell the blood had drained from my face, making me go pale. Oh. Keiichi-kun, who was he? Could it be the person from before, I wonder? I could feel the back of my throat going dry. This was no longer a bluff. They knew everything. How do you know that? It took everything I had to finally force those words from my throat. My knees were shaking. Because there's nothing this old man doesn't know. Mion sneered knowingly, and her laugh seemed to carry on forever. So Kei-chan, what did you talk about? It seems that you got pretty worked up over it too. We weren't talking about you guys. It didn't have anything to do with you or Rena. Isn't it a bit strange to hear our names come up even though nobody asked about that? Rena's unwavering gaze pierced through my eyes and peered further inside me. I dug my own grave. My heart was throbbing so much, it felt like I was going to explode. Well, whatever you're trying to hide, this old man already sees through it all. Remember that. I couldn't even shake my head. It took everything I had to stop my teeth from chattering. She had never let her gaze break from mine, even as she tilted her head slightly. Keiichi-kun, you don't look good. I think you should lie down. That's true. I think we should both head back home. As if nothing happened, they both giggled at each other and started making their way out. More intense shit. Love it. I hadn't moved a muscle since I had dropped the package at Mochi. As I left, the door slowly closed behind them. All I could do was stare, as if I couldn't move until the door was completely closed. This music change is so intense. Just as the door was about to close, it opened again slightly with a sudden creak, sending my heart racing once again. A single eye peered through this narrow slit, and Mion's hawkish gaze peered at me once again. See, Kei-chan. Yeah. I'd hate it if you missed school tomorrow, alright? Thud. The door closed. I wasn't able to move a muscle even after their low laughter died off to the distance, and silence again enveloped the room. Coming back to my senses, the first thing I did was lock the door. They knew what Oishi-san and I talked about? Why? How? No, that wasn't important. Thinking about it now, all it could have been overheard from the beginning of Oishi-san met me. Just as Mion said, I couldn't hide anything. Then, what were they trying to tell me? That part was obvious. They were warning me not to say anything unnecessary. What did they deem unnecessary? I only talked with Oishi-san about one thing, and they were warning me that that was unnecessary. What was it that Oishi-san talked to me about? The incidents involving Oyashiro-sama's curse that occurred every year weren't individual cases, that they were connected as a whole, as well as the fact that there may be multiple perpetrators hidden in Minazawa. No, more precisely, that Mion, Rena, Sachiko, and Rika-chan were all suspicious. Is that what they were warning me against? What kind of nonsense am I thinking about? I hit my own face hard enough that it let out a yelled slap. If only that would wake me from this nightmare, but for some reason it felt like I was punching a blanket. It was almost laughably painless. Calm down, Keiji Mibera. When did I become such a pessimist? Calm down. Settle down and sort things out. The reason Mion knew I was eating lunch with Oishi-san was probably because somebody from Himizawa just happened to be there at the time. They must have told Mion that I was there. That made the most sense. Plus, come to think of it, she didn't ask me where I ate lunch, did she? She only asked, was it good? They were just curious since I was together with someone not from Himizawa. It's not as if they had any ulterior motives. That's it. It has to be it. Thinking about it that way, it was the same with Rena. I was just acting strangely ambiguous about when I met with Oishi-san, and Rena was just correcting me on that. That's when I was bewildered by the change in character from the usual mild-mannered Rena, and was just startled by it. That's the most natural way of thinking about it. It felt like my mind was mixed up like a tangled mess of spaghetti. Deep red marinara sauce would have poured out of my nose and ears to be squeezed my head. Thinking that, I suddenly felt like vomiting. I really didn't want that to happen, so I stopped holding my head. Lily had no idea what anyone was saying. Spending time with them was fun. It didn't feel like there was any sort of hidden agenda. I really do think that they were a good bunch of people. When I just moved here and I couldn't make heads or tails of everything, they were really kind to me. Rena was really kind and looked after me. As long as that strange affliction didn't rear its ugly head, she was really pretty cute. Mion was also a really good person. She didn't care about anyone's age or gender and was optimistic and outgoing. I was never bored when I was with her. And talking about not getting bored, rambunctious Sachiko was a good person for that too. She was pretty bratty, but that was just the way she interacted with others. Rika-chan was the same way. She didn't speak often, but that didn't mean she was always silent. They were my friends. But after hearing the better untold secrets of Himizawa from Uishi-san and Tomitaka-san, when I got told about Oyashiro-sama's curse, things were starting to go crazy. And hearing Uishi-san that Mion, Rena, Sachiko, and Rika-chan were all suspicious. After that, everything changed. That's right. And it was starting to get weird after Uishi-san told me all that strange stuff. All that time, I really should have just not listened to those weird stories. And I shouldn't have heard about the past events from Tomitaka-san the night of Watanagashi. If I had just not gotten a strange sense of curiosity, if I just hadn't. That's right. So that's why they... Something Tomitaka-san, I'm going to assume killed. That imprudent outsider speaking to the likes of me after everybody went out to their way to keep it a secret from me. They'll probably kill Uishi-san as well. Assumption. For trying to unearth what everybody was warning me was better left buried. Besides that, he was unforgivable for spewing words that made me doubt the others. Of course, a guy like that was going to be killed. I mean, I want to just, assume other words like fucked, and I'm like, But Tomitaka-san and Uishi-san were nothing but outsiders after all. They were entities who couldn't coexist with the people of Himinazawa. Those guys who just followed Uishi-sama's curse and just, I'm going to assume, say die. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault for not being able to hold back my curiosity. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. I set into a daze. It was a lethargic feeling like I had just gotten up, but the ominous chill that haunted me had subsided. I was fine now. I was no longer frightened. I had completely recovered. I'll go to school tomorrow, light as rain. I'll greet everyone. I'll take part of the club activities. It'll definitely be fun. It had to be fun. I was one of them after all. Ah, that reminds me, I need to eat those mochi. I hope I'm able to tell which one Rena made. I remembered the homework the two brought when they visited me. Wow, our club did delivery. That was something else. I picked up the package I dropped on the floor and headed to the living room. It would be nice, I guess, to have some tea with it, to fill my mouth with mochi while drinking tea. Oh, this was quite a delectable situation I was in. Opening up the newspaper wrapping, there were 5 plump red bean paste mochi fit snugly inside. There were letters written from left to right on the newspaper, A, B, C, D, and E. Now then, they said Rena made one of these. I wonder which one. There wasn't much difference of how they looked. They smelled and appeared about the same. This was a pretty difficult problem. The biggest difference was probably their shape. I wasn't sure what kind of person Mion's grandma was, but Rena's had to be different from hers. Looking carefully, I could see the one mochi that was made very neatly. So, well, it's that, just by staring at it, one could tell it stood out. Looks like this challenge depended on whether or not this one's Rena's. Calm down and think even harder. Mion said her grandma made a ton of them and was given some to hand out, if I remember correctly. So that meant 4 of these were from that large batch. Then what about Rena? She probably only made 1. So she probably spent quite a bit of time on it. Meaning the one Rena made was this one, E. For a moment I thought it may have been a trap Mion laid because she knew I'd pick up on it, but that probably wasn't the case. I wouldn't be so sure if I knew Mion had made it, but since she said Rena made it, it probably wasn't a trap. Alright, my tea's ready too. I'll start with the defending champ, Mion's grandma. Let's see. Not bad. Smooth bean paste and soft, chewy texture left a little to be desired. The tea I drank afterwards also accentuated the experience. This was an exquisite piece of work. Now how about Rena's? The creation was so delicate, one would think it was just a high-class Japanese dessert. Since I normally had quite the appetite, I was slightly worried about the size of the portion. But, well, first a bite. This was quite a difficult one to judge, actually. The ingredients were exactly the same, so there was a little difference in the flavor. What was different was how it was shaped at the end, so it was to be expected. So the deciding factors would be presentation and volume. The well-formed and well-sized champion versus Rena the challenger, with a size you couldn't get enough of. I had only had 1 bite of Rena's. I should probably wait until after I was done eating to make my decision. Maybe there was something hidden inside that could cause an upset. Chew. It seems my prediction was right. My tongue touched something. I didn't feel like something edible, so I reached in my fingers and grabbed it. What? What was this? Before I could fully comprehend what it was, I threw away the rest of the mochi I was eating as fast as I could. It slammed against the wall, crushing the bean jam to splatter. Then after sticking for a moment, it slid down to the floor. I was dumbstruck by my own actions. What was I doing? Rena had gone out of her way to make this for me. How could I? Dumbstruck, I looked down my hand, performed such a vile act. Then I remembered what I had taken out of my mouth. At first I thought it was a hair. Even though it was shorter than Mion's, Rena's hair was still quite long. And it wasn't this short. It was also a bit too hard to be hair. It was thick enough to roll around on my tongue. There was a bit of metallic sheen on one end of it. Ah, yes, there was a hole where a thread goes through, like it was a sewing needle. Yeah, that's right. It looked very much like a sewing needle. Exactly like one. The end was pointed as well, quite sharply. It really did just look like a sewing needle. Huh? What did it mean by looked very much like a sewing needle just a bit ago? I couldn't answer, but a voice inside me already knew and let me know it by chattering my molars together. I couldn't stave off the terror welling up inside me. Suddenly I tasted something metallic and felt a prickling pain at the back of my throat. I stuck my finger in the back of my mouth and felt around to see if I was bleeding. Suddenly I felt the urge to vomit. A sharp taste of bile irritated the back of my throat. I clasped both hands over my mouth, and after writhing in agony, I was somehow able to hold back the nausea. I was finally able to breathe normally again. But this time my heart was intensely throbbing. And it finally registered. Exactly what was mixed in the mochi. Before I could think of the correct word, my hands were already on the move. Splat, plop, splort. I tossed the rest of the mochi against the wall. The geometrical patterns and the scattered bean jam on the wall suddenly invoked a terrible omen in my mind. After looking away, I dashed out to the hall and flew upstairs to my room, where I'd stayed under my covers until the morning. I clutched my own shoulders, howling madly in a mix of fear, anger, sadness, and frustration. This wasn't a threat or a warning or a reminder, nothing as simple as that. What had happened in Himizawa? What is happening in Himizawa? What could happen? What would happen? I didn't know the answer to any of those questions. Where did I break a taboo? Regardless, now Ren and Mion and others. They consider me an enemy, and they thought I should just die. I won't let you kill me. Not for such a pointless reason. I fell into a restless sleep as I crushed by my negative emotions. It was as if being drawn to a billowing bottomless marsh. What's medicine that makes you commit suicide threat? Hard to swallow, I can imagine. Anyway. Alright, let's go over these tips real quick. What's the drug that makes you commit suicide? If that's even a real thing in reality, I'm not entirely sure. Let's cut to the chase. Is there a drug that causes someone to kill themselves? Not directly, no. That's quite a roundabout response. You're saying that there's one that does it indirectly? Something that puts you into a suicidal mental state like that? That's hard to say. What would a suicidal mental state be? Like a person with a serious bipolar disorder. It's believed that some people are most likely to attempt suicide when swinging from depression to mania. Clinical depression and bipolar disorder are different. That's true. Clinical depression indicates a prolonged state of depression, whereas bipolar disorder is characterized by a passive depressed state accompanied by a very active manic state. That's also true. Individuals with clinical depression suffer from low self-esteem and are quite pessimistic, but are rarely commit suicide. They do not have the willpower to commit suicide. I feel like I'll leave that alone on that. Nor does mania on its own to lead to suicide. That has an opposite effect, filling the person with confidence and making them feel as though they are walking on air. Thus, they do not commit suicide. That's interesting. Neither state causes suicide, but when the condition changes, they might do so. There's a desire to commit suicide when in a state of depression, but they do not have the willpower to commit such a formidable act. But when they enter mania, they gain a burst of willpower and their body moves as they desire. I see. So it means they gain the willpower to commit suicide. That's how it goes. That's why patients are given sedatives during that time to keep them from acting out on their impulses. When was Tomitake bipolar? People who suffer from bipolar disorder generally commit suicide by more civilized means. It's like, say, hanging or jumping off a building. Self-harm as though going through withdrawal is completely different. Tomitake's death wasn't civilized. No one would think it was caused by some foreign substance. As I said from the start, tell me of a drug that causes someone to commit suicide. There are reports of methamphetamine overdoses produce a condition that resembles bipolar disorder. It's a stimulant. Barbiturate overdoses are also reported to cause erratic behavior. That's a sleep aid. There were no signs of stimulants. Are there any other possibilities? All I can think of is that there's some sort of illness, something like Graves' disease, which affects the thyroid and is known to cause symptoms that resemble bipolar disorder. But Graves' disease has many characteristic symptoms on its own. The deceased exhibited none of them. I wonder, is there something that could happen more spontaneously? Something that fits this case and would cause someone to want to commit suicide all of a sudden? Are you familiar with organic mental disorders? I cannot read today. In short, it's a condition where the brain is out of whack due to a physical injury or illness. It can be caused by drugs, but it can also be caused by physical trauma, encephalitis, a stroke, or even tumors. Basically, without a drug, one can succumb to an irregular mental state. The deceased was surrounded after being chased and his life was in danger, right? All that stress could have been messed with his brain, chemistry. He would have hit his head, and those factors combined might have caused him to mutilate himself. It's a possibility. Could you explain it to me in simpler terms? That was pretty simple. Whatever. Well, haha. Basically knocked his noggin in the brawl that made him go haywire. Nah, ha 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 ha. What the fuck's with this laughing right now? Then his lady didn't have any intent to kill. Just smacked him in the bad place when he nicked some change. Tomb Plump Man laughed hoarsely. But of course, it's not like that. Undoubtedly. If it was a habitual drug use, if it was something mental, the deceased's body holds the key. How are things on your end? Oh my goodness, look at the time. I need to get back sooner. Uma-chan will get angry with me. Yeah, good luck. Best wishes. Best wishes. This is a lot. Alright, here's one called Threat. Those guys just know. They had a national diet badges. Then it's prefectural assembly member and the city councilor Sonozaki. That's interesting. Prefectural assembly member and city councilor are related. It's dirty is what it is. Shouting out each other's name during elections, while one's up for election, the other one holds an assembly, and they double up their campaign activities. Blatantly. I don't know much about this stuff, but isn't that against the rules of the election? As long as they have no prior consultation, there are no restrictions on their political activities. Kuma-chan, the investigation and division is going to be pretty tough for you. You should at least brush up on election policies. I'm not suited for intelligence division. Because I'm dumb. There was a prefectural assembly member, Sonozaki, and city councilor Sonozaki, and the mayor of Himinazawa. All of them involved with the Sonozaki family. What crap. Looks like they were seen off by the department chief and deputy chief. It came to me. That night when the chief invited me along to get some Odin, I thought that was it. You have a lot of connections, so you might have heard something. Did you? Nope. Not a thing. Ma'am, I'll take a tofu friter and fish cake. Counselor barked at me in the police chief's stead. Oh my, is that so? Ma'am, I'll take another bowl. Prefectural Assembly member Sonozaki and City Councilor Sonozaki were both intimidating. Our snot-nosed career police chief couldn't even handle being yelled at by them. They're like Yakuza. So, Japanese gang, basically. A petition with your name came up regarding how the investigation of the Himinazawa incident is being handled. Goodness me, I have not the faintest. No need to play dumb. You're reopening the past cases regarding Himinazawa, aren't you? I've already got my hands full with Tomitake's death, actually. Nah, ha ha ha. Really? If that's true, then there's no problem. There was a period of silence. While we were silent, we made headway on our food and drink. Oof, that was quite the feast. This month has been a bunch of losses for me, so my wallet is feeling the pinch. Much appreciated. No, it was nothing. Talent me a good horse again. I'll bet on the same one as you.
Nah, ha ha ha. I haven't been doing as well there lately.
I haven't been able to read the horses at all. Oh, shoot. What did that say?
It's nothing. Tell me a good horse again. I'll bet the same one as you. Nah, haha. I've been doing well there lately. I haven't been able to read the horses at all. Taxi.
I'm going by train. The police chief has taken a taxi. I have my own car, but it'd be rash to drive it home. Can't blow it right before retirement with a DUI. Even though he could still rattle it off, it looked like his legs are ready to goo. Or already goo. Pushing him into the cab, I gave the driver police chief's address. Well, see you again tomorrow. Happy New Year. Uishi-san. Yeah. Past incidents have all been closed. Stop lumping them all together. Those villagers half believe it's really a curse. Well, I'm not convinced. You're going to be retiring next year, aren't you? Aren't you going to pay off your mortgage with your pension and move up to Hokkaido with your mom? Mother pines to return the land of her birth. It's the least I can do. And the pension, well, let me enjoy myself in Susukino. Nahaha. The police chief may issue a special retirement salary raise, he says. A public servant's pension is calculated based on their monthly salary. So if you were able to get a raise right before retirement, your bonus to your salary would be inflated. So you get a heavy surplus of funds. That tends to be how it is done around here. Of course, it's not a custom that's thought of highly. The difference between bonuses and pension is quite a bit. I'd expect nothing less exemplary from our egghead chief. But, well, they say our salary is compensation for our hard work, but in the end it really just has to do with the passage of time. That's not something I can laugh at, but I'll laugh through it anyway. I don't think it's anything exemplary, but given how hard you've worked, it's not odd that you're getting that much of a pension. I'd like to get that much myself. If I can get it, well, of course I'd want it. Nah. You'll get it. You're an adult after all. Sorry for holding up here. Driver, thank you very much. I closed the door roughly, interrupting the chief's conversation a bit rudely. It looked like the chief still had something to say, but he just smiled wryly and waved. I waved in return. The cat sped up gradually and soon disappeared among the sea of lights. Oh man. I wonder if I really can repay that loan. Kind of getting more insight about, just different things, really. Alright, well, I'm going to cut that off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, I think I'm just feeling like the intenseness of what was just going on. Like, a lot is kind of coming about in interesting ways. And again, it's just like, I can't wait. And if it's getting interesting just in this first, like, chapter of, like, the whole series of the visual novel, I can't wait to get through the other ones. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. So, let me know what y'all think in the comments, and have yourselves a great one. Bye-bye.